When something goes wrong, they don't think that it is permanent. They realize that it's a phase. They realize that this too shall pass. They take it one day at a time. They move on to the next day. And eventually things do pass. And they don't think that, they're stuck in it forever. That tends to happen to a lot of us. So I tell people, if something went wrong in your life, if you had a breakup, for example, continue to work hard in your office. Continue to go to the gym. Continue to work out regularly. Continue to eat healthy. Meet all your friends so that everything else is intact. When you write down your goals and you write it down very specifically, your likelihood of hitting those goals are much higher. And there are multiple studies which have supported that.
Do you think, Vinesh, there is some science behind, why people grow from their experiences while others still continue to do the same repeated things and still not learn from their experiences? So is there a science behind that?
So I think when people build a wall around them, they stop liking some things at work, they stop liking certain kinds of work, they stop meeting their friends, they stop all these channels which could give them useful feedback.
Hello and welcome to the GIBS IRE Talks Podcast, a place where ideas meet inspiration. I'm Dr. Pallavi Vyas, your host for today, and I'm really pleased to welcome an amazing leader amongst us, Mr. Vinesh Sukumaran, who's a Forbes Coaches Council member, a TEDx speaker, a leadership coach, a positive psychology, and many more titles to his kitty. Please welcome me in joining Mr. Vinesh, who has coached and counseled multiple leaders across different countries, almost 30,000 plus individuals whose lives have been touched by Vinesh because of the kind of personality that he carries, because of the leadership clarity that he carries in his thoughts, because of his experiences, which he has developed through multiple coaching that he has done for multiple leaders, the kind of experiences that he gets to learn from. So let us hear it from Vinesh Sukumaran and understand what it means to have positive leadership amongst you, what it means to be right there at the field and have those experiences through your personal and professional lives and become better each and every day in your professional journey. Hi, Vinesh.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. So to begin with, Vinesh, my question to you is, if you had to introduce yourself, who is Vinesh Sukumaran? Who do you think you would say, this is who Vinesh is? And what do you think is a takeaway that people may have from today's podcast? As in, why do you think people should listen to today's podcast? What kind of learnings do you think they would have today?
See, my standard introduction when I go for a workshop or a session is to say I'm a positive psychologist. And because they're workshops, because they're conversations, that itself sparks a lot of conversation, because they say, are you a positive person or are you a psychologist? They want to know more about it. But I think for somebody watching today's podcast, of course, they're going to get insights about that. But more than that, they would also get to know, considering that this is a B school, how, we're all too apt to build a sort of coherent narrative arc about our lives. But usually life is not like that. There are wrong turns, there are right turns. So people who want to hear about all that, maybe this podcast is a good place to hear about it. Yeah.
All right. That's great. That's great, Vinesh. So in your introduction, we talked about you being a Forbes coach.
Right.
What exactly is a Forbes coach? Who exactly is a Forbes coach? If you could please share some insights about that with our audience.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you're asking me that because, see, I think the Forbes is a media company. Their most popular flagship product is probably their magazine and their, Forbes.com. At some point, they started putting together these councils. And they got in touch with me to ask me to join their coaches council. Now, it's quite interesting. There are a lot of these outfits here. There's a very popular magazine in India or a newspaper in India which has these events. And the event is, you're the most successful entrepreneur of the year. You're the most successful chef of the year. But at some point, I realized that these are events which you are paying for.
Yeah, exactly.
So they call 30 people. Each one pays a couple of lakhs. You're given a number of tickets, which obviously you will give to somebody who is going to show up.
Yeah.
So the room has a few hundred people who you invited and you paid for the event and you're getting an award.
All right.
So when Forbes contacted me, I didn't know what to make of it. But then when I reached out to some people, because you also have to pay for the editorial service. Because every time you write an article, the article is looked at by the Forbes editorial team. Now that doesn't come for free. So then I'm like, you're contacting me and you're also asking me to pay for some sort of but when I spoke to the people and they said, look, you can't ask them to join them, but if they've reached out to you, you should take it up, and it's a good thing. So the Coaches Council, everybody who's part of the council, I think as far as I know, there are 4 or 5 people from India, and everyone who's part of the council is, writes for them. You are called a Forbes coach, therefore. And they also have a business council. They have, I think, an IT council and so on. So I'm part of the Forbes Coaches Council. And there's a lot of writing that happens, a lot of sharing. Those articles come on Forbes.com. And that's what a Forbes coach is. That's my long definition of it.
All right. That's interesting. I think quite a good learning for all of us who are listening to you right now.
That is true. Yeah.
Great. So, Vinesh, when I was looking at your profile, I found that you've traveled to multiple countries, I think 20 plus countries. What kind of cultural dissimilarities or peculiarities did you discover, like in your travels all across the world, when you meet people? Specifically because you are a psychologist yourself, so you may sometimes, maybe that psychologist in you may evaluate people, analyze culture. So could you share with us those cultural, peculiarities that you may have observed?
See, I think my first big exposure was going to France and working there for some time. And you do see, I think India is a great place for cultural diversity.
Absolutely.
You can travel 100 kilometers and taste different cuisines, different languages, different dialects, here, see different styles of dressing and so on.
Yes.
Compared to that, I think the rest of the world is nothing.
Absolutely, actually.
But, I did notice some of the things which are not just stereotypes. Like, for example, I was eating a buffet every day in France, and a lot of the things that you see, the crepes, the escargot, the red wine, green olives, it's all part of their culture. So cuisine was a big thing in France. I remember very distinctly last year when I went to Australia, the whole country is pretty outdoorsy.
All right.
And there's a huge outdoor phenomenon, and I met somebody who's from India. Typical North Indian moved to Melbourne, and she said part of me experiencing Australia was to embrace this outdoor culture. So I like to go cycling, I'd like to go kayaking, I like to trek, and I like to go out and so on. And of course, one culture which really stands out is Japan. I think Japan has something really unique apart from their technology and the Shinkansen, and I think everything is really clean, everything is organized, and I saw some things there which were really priceless. They've thought through a lot of things, even using the washroom. Like when you use the washroom, there's a button on the WC which only makes flushing noise but doesn't flush. And it's there for obvious reasons. You want to camouflage other noises. And just like that, you look closely at the Shinkansen driver, he's got a checklist. Without checking those multiple things, the train doesn't move. So it's very, you can't miss the culture. And these are some things, if I was to just think about, which really stood out.
All right. That's interesting. That's wonderful. So in your experience, Vinesh, I'm sure you've been interacting with multiple leaders in India across different countries. What is one thing that you've observed in those leaders who are specifically secretly struggling? Are there any behavioral patterns that you may have identified or anything peculiar about how they really act, how they take actions, how they really take their decisions? So anything that you've observed specifically, leaders who are struggling in today's times?
See, one of the things is, like, if you've met the leader before, and a lot of times this happens, I met the leader a few times, and suddenly one day you meet them and there's been a huge layoff and they've had to lay off a number of people. Or suddenly you meet them and there's something new. They have a new member on the board and that's creating pressure. You see that they're not themselves, because that's certainly something that you notice. If somebody's struggling, something about them which is slightly unnatural, which is slightly off. Yeah, that's what we really say. I met her today and she was slightly off. That's what they're talking about. So that applies for leadership. It's not unique in that sense. I think another thing which I also notice with the leaders who are struggling is they don't have a real outlet.
Okay.
And sometimes you don't even think they're struggling.
Mhm.
When I start coaching a leader, after a few sessions, I asked them, how's it going?
Yeah.
The best person to ask is the person,
Absolutely.
the CEO himself.
Yeah.
And they say, it's good. And ask them, what's working for you? What's going well? Is there something that I need to know? And they say, what's really working is I get to sit here and talk and share things with you about what's happening in my life, not just my work life, but also my personal life. And I think that experience is very relieving for them. That experience is something which is really, gives them some sort of therapy, but also helps them bring their best self out. So I think one thing, going back to what you asked me, people who are struggling don't have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're shielding it from their friends because, I'm too cool to talk about these things, talk about my financial troubles to my friends who I'm competing with, right?
Correct.
Sometimes I'm also I don't have a network who I can share these things with. I'm close to family, but, the family is a big part of the problem. Who do I talk to? I can't talk to them about it.
Correct.
So I think the ones who have that system in place, they find it to take the lid off the pressure cooker, or I think the more recent thing is to calm the server down.
Yeah, correct. So just to ask another follow-up question on the same lines, so is it too overrated being a leader, specifically because you're a psychologist? So I'm specifically asking you this question, that being a leader, is that too much of a pressure? Being a leader, like, you cannot be yourself. You sometimes have to pretend what you probably are not because you have a team looking at you. Because probably as a leader, you have somebody else who's above you and watching you. So is it too overrated? Is it like too much of a pressure, or is it something which naturally comes to people and is very free flowing? Mean that because you've been designated a position, you automatically become leader, or is it just that you're a born leader and that's why you are doing it so well? So what is your observation on that?
See, I think there's a bit of both. Okay, I mean, some people, we all have qualities. In fact, to talk about the psychology behind it, a big part of the reason why we are the way we are is genetics.
Yes, absolutely.
So from the way you look to the way you act, your mannerisms, that's why if you go to the hospital with some problem, the doctor will ask you, did your father have it? Did your mother have the problem? They're going to ask you that. So there is genetics.
Yeah, all right.
And you don't realize the importance of this till you do studies on it. And there are a lot of studies which have been done on twins who are separated at birth.
Yeah.
So genetically similar, but different in terms of upbringing. And the interesting story is about how when the twins are later in their 30s, they come to the lab, they are wearing very similar t-shirts, very similar mannerisms,
similar choices,
similar things like nuances, like purposely sneezing in the elevator to freak people out. Okay,
all right.
Both wearing the same wristband to support the same cause, and that's uncannily similar.
Yeah.
So what that tells us is genetics plays a role.
Yes.
The second thing is also upbringing. So I feel there's a lot of the upbringing. I mean, I think parents who are watching this should be relieved to know that a big part of the way your children will turn out is because of the way you are.
Absolutely.
But more than your influence in what you tell them, I think cultural influences are stronger.
Yeah, all right.
Which is why you see typical Indian parents from Kolkata or from Hyderabad or from Bangalore. They go live in California. Children end up becoming more Californian than Indian.
Yeah.
They end up talking like them, listening to that kind of music and so on. So there is the cultural influence which is strong. And the third is mere chance. So if you're made a leader, apart from these things that you carry, there are a lot of things that you can learn. And that's what happens through coaching sessions, through your own drive of learning new things, through getting mentored by the right people in your organization.
So being a leader, having a mentor again becomes important.
It does become important. So I would say it's not nature versus nurture. I think it's
both.
It's both. And to be fortunate enough to be in the right company at the right time and
having
have the right opportunities.
Right people around you, maybe that also helps. Having the right people, having the right network.
Who sometimes trust you more than you do. And then later that rubs off on you through osmosis.
Correct. And like you mentioned earlier, somebody whom you can at least speak with.
Correct.
In moments of doubt, in moments of maybe your own highs and lows. Having somebody.
Oh yes, that does make a difference. I remember my very first job. Just when I'd come back from France, and we were talking about some client, and I was just a fresher, just having worked for a few months. And but my MD at that time, he thought I was good enough to do something which I didn't believe in. So I said, this client, I don't think I can do this program because they're looking for a senior consultant. And he looked me in the eyes and said, "You're the senior consultant." I said, "No, they're much older than me. They're like they have experience more than my age. He said, yeah, but they don't know this product as well as you do. And that's all matters. The rest is just noise.
Yeah, and I think that's about having a good leader.
True.
With you, because they see in you what you don't see in yourself,
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. So Vinesh, my next question to you is, based on your observations, based on your interactions with people, what do you think that separates an individual who has done something big in life from those who actually look busy but haven't really delivered anything? So what is that something which you feel separates these two kind of people? Is there something that you feel based on your interactions, based on your understanding of psychology? What is that one thing which separates doers from just those who are looking busy?
Yeah, so I keep telling my clients that one of my roles as a consultant, as a psychologist, is there's this whole body of research papers, there are articles, there are nowadays videos, and I think one of my roles is to cut through the clutter and bring to my clients what's applicable and what's usable. Because sometimes I read something in a paper and make a team do it and it just doesn't work. It looked great on the research paper.
Yeah.
So I think one thing which related to psychology, which I see as a difference, is the people who do something big, meaningful, achievement. There's this work done by Aaron Beck, and he says that one of the things that gives you drive and makes you do things, and I've noticed this pattern not just in cognitive therapy, which is what he worked on, but also with people. When something goes wrong, they don't think that it is permanent. They realize that it's a phase. They realize that this too shall pass. They take it one day at a time. They move on to the next day, and eventually things do pass. And they don't think that they're stuck in it forever. That tends to happen to a lot of us. The second thing is they don't think it's personal. So if they get laid off, they don't think, I was the problem. They do look at market conditions. They do look at somebody in the company making the wrong choice for the moment, or they're trying to save the company at the cost of a few people, and I just happen to be one of them. They do look at the role of chance. So they don't think that, I'm the problem, and therefore now I can't do anything. And, when you think of it like that, it gives you agency. It tells you that I'm not stuck in this, so it's not permanent. I'm not the real problem, so I can do something differently. And the third thing is pervasiveness. So there's permanence, personal, and pervasive. And pervasiveness basically means they don't let it affect all areas of their life. And sometimes people tend to do this. So your behavior for those few days is not great. So
you make it all pervasive.
You end up not talking properly to the people who you interact with. So I tell people, if something went wrong in your life, if you had a breakup, for example, continue to work hard in your office. Continue to go to the gym. Continue to work out regularly. Continue to eat healthy. Meet all your friends so that everything else is intact. So sometimes you just have one small problem. When you let everything else slip, maybe the relationship comes back, but now you have a real problem. You don't have a life.
Correct. You've missed all of it altogether.
Correct. So I think people who really achieved a lot of things, they're mindful of this. They're aware of this and so on.
So in our conversation, you just mentioned about all that academic research that happens. So to what extent, now I'm an academician, so that's why I got attracted to that word research, academic research particularly. So to what extent do you think this academic research that really happens in an institution wherein academicians are talking about leadership, they're talking about theories, they talk about phenomenon, to what extent do you feel all of that really comes into practice? Do you really think that makes sense? Or is it just that the academician are just doing it because they have to do it and they're just filling those papers and they're just getting themselves a name out of their research? So as a practitioner, do you really think that applies? Do you really think that makes sense?
Well, see, it's a mixed bag, and let me tell you what I think about different parts of it. One is there is a lot of research out there, and people are trying to bring things out which are shocking. What you knew all along was completely wrong. Such breakthrough research. People say people sit up and take notice. So they're trying to create that. Also in research circles called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where named after the Texan, or the marksman who shoots a bullet into the wall and then draws the bullseye around it. So you're trying to skew your research in a direction that makes it look cool, makes it look better, and so on. So I think nowadays there there are many more checks and balances to make sure that you're doing what you promised and not changing it on the fly and slicing and dicing the data differently to make it look consistent. And sometimes you can just knock off a year saying that, oh, that was the year of the elections and this is what happened on this year, and then the data might eventually look different. But when I go for a lot of these psychology conferences, when I meet other people from academia and people who are doing research, who are doing their PhD and so on, while I constantly want to know, because I really value the brave researchers out there who are collecting data, who are sending out those questionnaires, getting them filled and so on, because being slightly higher up in the value chain, you have to depend on them for their research and you want to use it.
Correct.
But they also want to know from people like me who are practitioners, who are in the, in the user interface side of it, so to say, whether it's worked and whether it does work. And I think I tend to go with some things which have been so consistent that nobody's going to question it. Like nobody's going to question that every second person in India has a cell phone. Like who's going to question that?
Correct.
So just like that, there are findings, for example, when you write down your goals and you write it down very specifically, your likelihood of hitting those goals are much higher. And there are multiple studies which have supported that. And the good news is nowadays there are not just meta studies or meta analyses. There are meta studies of of multiple other studies which have studied other studies. So you can combine all of that, and I think that's valuable information instead of having to do the research yourself. And why would you want to invent the wheel? Yeah, but I'm a big supporter and fan of looking at what works, because at the end of the day, my clients don't really care about what research is out there. They're saying, here's the problem.
You
now tell me, what can I do to solve this, to get out of it? Or here's what I want to do. I'm happy, but I want to be happier. But is this as happy as I can be? And that's what positive psychology is about. So then if there's something that's going to help him or her and they sort of see the results, nothing overshadows that.
So I think probably based on your experiences, based on bits and pieces of what you may find interesting here and there, probably would pick it up all together and see what works in that particular situation. Let's say you're giving consultancy to somebody.
Absolutely. I think so too. And you constantly learn things from your clients, because your clients are telling you what worked, what didn't work, and so on. Also, there's a lot of, like for example, there's a lot of outlier information, so to say. There's so much of literature and videos and stuff about how to make money. But I met a client the other day who's made enough money, and he said, how do I spend this?
Okay. All right.
So I'd met, sometime back, I'd met this fantastic researcher called Elizabeth Dunn, and she's from the University of British Columbia, and her research is about how to spend.
Okay.
And when she moved from being a PhD student to, when she had a real salary, she was thinking, how do I get the biggest bang for my buck? And her findings bring out 3 or 4 things. One is spend on experiences, spend on others, spend on buying more time, and so on.
Wow.
So when this person started using those things, he realized that, he's exponentially happier and living a better life compared to if he just kept that money and invested it or done other things with it or bought property or whatever.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, Vinesh, could you tell me, again, based on your interactions, based on your knowledge about people, what do you think a person needs to do? Or rather, I would frame it differently. Do you think a person can really build a successful career without truly knowing who they are, as in without self-discovery? Can you really build a successful career, as in without knowing, because you're a psychologist, from that perspective I'm asking, without knowing who truly am I, can I really be very successful in my career? Or is it just that you're doing a job and you just get done with it? So what is your thought around that?
Yeah, it's quite tricky. But then at some point I realized that, like everybody, if you have no idea about yourself, like there's this book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. There's a question which says, and it's an old philosophical question, if you can't see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and you have no senses, can you really think? So like that, if you have no idea about yourself, can you really function? I don't know, and I'll leave that to the philosophers to decide. But everybody who's done something in life, they have some sense of what works for them. They kind of know how hard they can work, how much they can push themselves, what works, what doesn't work, and so on. So you've got to have some idea. But definitely, the more you know about yourself, for example, if you know what irritates you in other people, if you know what kind of work that you like, if you know what really makes you tick, what is something you can be truly passionate about? What would you work for? The popular cliche, you didn't have to make money, what would you do? What kind of work would you do? If you have answers to these, you will find something more meaningful too. You can become extremely successful. But I don't know if I've met somebody who has no idea about that. Because usually someone who meets me who's been really successful, for example, they already have some idea what they're good at. They have some self-awareness.
Yes,
it's impossible to not have.
Absolutely.
They're trying to sort of understand more about it, build on that, and therefore you'll get to know what will eventually make me say happier or even more driven. Like I met somebody recently, one of my clients, he was a politician, and he said when he was in politics, he was in flow. And the day started and it just got over. There was something or the other happening. So he was aware of that. He'd gotten a glimpse into that. Now he was retired. Now he wanted to know, how do I get that flow back? Can I start working again? Do I need to get back into politics, which I don't think I want to? And so that's a discussion worth having. And it goes back to self-awareness. So I think the more self-aware you are likely to do a lot of other things better, which probably also includes work and success.
Yeah, probably create that flow in your life, isn't it? Creating that flow and making sure that everything comes back together, as in everything around your life comes together.
Correct. If flow is what floats your boat. But if it's something else, then that thing, right?
Then, whatever it is, whatever works for you.
Correct.
Understood. Correct. So, Vinesh, according to you, what do you think is that one thing that kills creativity in an educated person more than anything else? So, on the one hand, we say creativity requires that free flow of information, that free space, thinking out of the box. And then on the other hand, we overemphasize being educated as well. So what is that one thing that you think, one or maybe multiple things that you may think, that kills creativity in an educated person much more than anybody else or anything else?
Yeah, I can only speak for maybe partially myself, but also, I had a huge interest in art while I was growing up. And I mean, even later, even after engineering, I used to have an art website called pureartstudio.com.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of my art and poetry and so on. So I think one thing certainly is these outlets are required. And it's how you do anything is how you do everything, right? You don't have to necessarily be creative at work to flex the creativity muscle. You can sometimes write something creative. You can sometimes work out creatively. You can sometimes listen to some music or make your own music. So any outlet of creativity is good for creativity in general inside of you, and to build that or to flex that creativity muscle. So I think when people don't have that outlet of any kind, and all they do is just go to work, finish something, come back, go to work, the very production line style, like these old Charlie Chaplin movies.
Yeah, too mechanical.
Too mechanical. That I think definitely is detrimental to creativity. I think another thing is also the people you hang out with. You're with a group which is only talking about, say, a sport or running. You are likely to also start running. Like that, if you have a group which is not interested at all in anything creative or even remotely creative, it's likely to rub off on you.
All right. Your own creative juices may stop flowing.
Yeah, if you even had them. But, so,
all right.
So I think that these are maybe two of the big ticket items. And I think also areas of work. Because sometimes work itself is meant to be repetitive. Work itself is meant to be, doing similar things every single day. And there's no outlet for your creativity, then maybe it's a good idea for you to find something else. And which is why it's not surprising that you take somebody who's built to be a musician or was a musician. And I remember inviting somebody for my for a family member's birthday. What I gifted my sister-in-law was a live performance. So I got these two musicians home, and this guy said he was working for LinkedIn. I said, wow, are you enjoying work? And he said, I'm just waiting. And then I'm going to become a full-time musician. And now he is.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if you have that, that outlet, then you'll probably chase it and you'll exercise that creativity. If you don't, then you'll continue doing the same thing. And if you're very comfortable, means that, that's not a big deal for you. And maybe you don't have this need to express your creativity, and that's okay. But for the people who need to, it's like George Bernard Shaw said, right, for the same reason that a cow gives milk. So it's inside you and it just has to come out.
It has to come out. Understood. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's inside you and it has to come out. Unless you make it come out, you would be restless. You would continue to be restless.
True.
Yeah. So, Vinesh, what do you think is the difference between information and wisdom, if there is any, between information and wisdom? And why do you think most of the educated people confuse the two? So, being informed doesn't always mean having the wisdom, right? So, how do you think the two differ from each other, and why is it that most of the people confuse the two of them?
I think information is, there's a lot of focus on information with, information technology, and there's a lot of information out there. It's gone are the days of time is money. Now information is money. We've heard all these cliches, but I think information is one part of it. Maybe it's something that's required, but wisdom is more about the application of it. How do you use that to make better decisions? How do you use that to live a better life? How do you use that to make the right choices and so on? I think that's an important part of that distinction. But I think a larger part of it is also related to application. Reading a whole book on kindness doesn't mean you become a kind person. So I think information and data is like that. It's very sort of knowledge based. Let's just call it knowledge based, and that's important. So, for example, if you want to know where all the countries are in the world, you can't have experiential learning, and you can't say it's enough to look at an atlas for you to know that Australia is to the east of India, and that is true. You don't have to. I don't think there's any serious dispute on that.
Go there and
you don't have to go there to sort of prove it to yourself and check if the airplane's flying east. But I think with respect to application, if you want to be more competent, I think wisdom I would probably put in that bucket. But I think usually when we talk about wisdom, we're talking about the mental faculty which helps you make those right choices or do the right thing or be more astute in your judgment and so on.
And probably with that experience, I think you automatically would build that wisdom, probably.
I'm sure.
With your experience.
I think the more often you exercise it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah. So, do you think, Vinesh, there is some science behind, why people grow from their experiences while others still continue to do the same repeated things and still not learn from their experiences? So, is there a science behind that? That some people really grow out of it and become something better, or maybe sometimes miserable even. And why is it that others probably don't get anything from it? So do you think there is a science behind that, being a psychologist again? I keep adding that, But
See, a couple of weeks ago, my social media team posted something on something I wrote a long time ago called "You Will Be Tested." So it's about, if you, for example, be in a horrible relationship and maybe you were too giving in that relationship and the other person took you for granted and you broke up. Now you get into another relationship and you will be tested. So once again, if you do the same thing, you'll keep going on. So there's no way you'll miss the lesson. You'll keep putting yourself in situations where the same thing shows up. And maybe you made bad decisions in, say, something related to, you had a financial crisis. And you realize that this whole thing happened because I wasn't careful enough. And I was just extravagant and I was reckless. If you haven't learned your lesson in finance, maybe next time it's not a financial crisis in your life. Maybe something else happens. You get into a job which you think you're too cool for, and you're once again reckless and you get fired. So that's what that article was about. It was about you will be tested. And it's not like these tests stop, but I think once you learn your lesson, then it stops being a test for you.
Correct.
So if you're scared to stand in front of a group and then you learn how to overcome that, next time you stand in front of the group, it's a no-brainer.
It's not even a test.
It's not even a test.
Yeah.
I think the tests just go on at their own pace. But I think some people don't learn it because maybe one of the reasons is also they love being in that phase. Like, why do some people not quit and retire in the same company that they joined? Because they reach their comfort zone. It's not like there are no job opportunities out there.
Correct.
You are choosing this over everything else at some point, whether you like it or you accept it or not. Because I always believe people at any given point are doing exactly what they want.
Yes, agree. So again, Vinesh, you keep talking to a lot of leaders and you give coaching to them and speak to a lot of them, wherein you listen to their stories and all that. I'm sure many times you must have interacted with those people who feel that, they have everything. They've achieved everything that they wanted in life, or they've reached that pinnacle of success, or maybe that self-actualization that, what I wanted to achieve, I'm already there. But still they feel that emptiness. I think sometimes they're not able to describe what is success to them, or even say that, yeah, I'm successful and I've achieved everything.
Right.
So why do you think this happens? Why is it that people still find that emptiness and still find, no closure in terms of what they want to achieve or where they see themselves? So what do you think?
I think one of the underlying reasons is right from when we are kids, or, in many parts of the world, we are, trying to please others. So it starts with being a good boy or a good girl or or a good child. Then it moves on to, doing what, there are a lot of parents who also love doing this. They sort of relive their dreams, or maybe live their dreams for the first time through their children.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't become a cricketer, so my son should become a cricketer.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's somebody else who's dying to become a cricketer who's doing engineering.
Correct.
So I think there's a bit of that. I think a larger thing is, a lot of us, what we really like is, we're chasing emotions. And there's this, you must have heard about the John who gets married at 25 is not the John who gets divorced at 40. Just like that, the Julia who buys the mansion at 40 is not the Julia who, moves to the old age home at 60, and so on.
Yeah, correct.
So we're pretty bad at predicting how we feel in the future. We may be pretty good at knowing where we want to be in the future, but predicting how we feel, we're not really that good at. I think that's part of the problem. And I think a lot of us, we think if we buy that car, we'll be happy. I think that's a wrong mantra that's been sold, and a lot of us have bought into and lapped up so comfortably. So, but sometimes it just doesn't help. Even when I meet a client, like I'm working with somebody who's really trying to buy this fancy car because he's married into this family which is very sophisticated, elite, and for lack of a better word, rich. And he's trying to prove to the extended family that he makes the cut. Now, it doesn't help me telling him, buddy, if you're gonna, you might buy the car and sit in and still not be happy. Sometimes you have to just find out yourself. So I think at the end of the day, we're chasing emotions, and it's worth doing this exercise of finding out what are those top, what I call values or emotions that we're after. If it's happiness, peace, and say comfort, if these are my top three, and if I'm doing things which give me worry, anxiety, and other things. So I might, or for example, if pride and happiness are two of your top, sometimes you're starting this huge business because you want to be proud of what creating this empire, but it's really eating into your happiness on a day-to-day basis. I think that conflict a lot of times comes up in my coaching conversations, and there are definite ways to sort it out. First of all, to know what they are, and then you realize that it's not worth me gunning for the next CEO position.
All right.
It's not worth me trying to buy this huge empire at the cost of losing my family. So because one of my big values is love. So when you realize these things, you make better choices. And I think the emptiness that you alluded to, you're less likely to face that.
All right. And
of course, we can never be sure. You can just reduce the odds.
I'm sure, because I was going to ask you, a follow-up on what you just said. Does it always work that way? Because see, when I'm talking about leaders, I'm also talking about entrepreneurs, or particularly individuals who have dreamt of doing something big in their life.
Right.
And like you said, you have to identify your own values. So let's say I want to earn money, but I also value my family. I also value love. I value relationships. But then probably striking that balance would be a difficulty, right?
Right.
So of course, don't you think that again, it'll put you in a dilemma wherein, you have to choose this because this is a career or this is the success that you're looking for. But then that is also important. But don't you think again, it's a dilemma and still it'll put emptiness out there?
It could. And when you're aware of that, because sometimes it's really difficult to choose what matters to you more. Is it happiness or it's peace of mind? And when you go through these structured conversations where you're making that choice, when you're not under pressure to decide, when you're not in a situation where you have to choose one or the other, where you're just looking at both of them and saying, what's better for me? And once you've decided, it's like deciding that I'm going to follow this diet for the week, then you don't think when that's happening, then you just move.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I don't know, going to church on Sunday and, getting up on Sunday and thinking, does God exist? I don't know, So you're just going to act.
Yeah.
So I think when you thought that through,
Mm-hmm.
then when the time comes to decide, if I do this, if I pick this promotion, I am going to compromise on seeing my child growing up.
Yeah.
What I want really is closeness and care from my family.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I will not take this up. It becomes crystal clear to you.
All
But
right.
if you've not thought this through,
There's a clutter always.
at a moment when you're calm and relaxed and you don't have to make that choice,
Mm-hmm.
then it's easier for you to decide on what you want to buy. For example, just any product when you're not under pressure to buy it.
Correct.
But if you have to go for a wedding tomorrow, if you have to buy it, with a sense of urgency, you sometimes end up picking the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So in a lot of my coaching discussions, we sort of iron this out and we say, look, next time there is a decision to take, this is most important for you. It's repeatedly coming up.
All right.
So it's a no-brainer. If you have to choose between this and that, you better prioritize care or, personal time with family over ambition.
All right.
Or sometimes vice versa, depending on the person.
All right. So through the conversation, you ultimately come out to at least some discussion points.
That is true.
All right. That's great. That's great. So Vinesh, we will have a quick rapid fire. I have some 4-5 questions. Yeah, we can make it as rapid or as slow as well. So no pressure.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first question to you is hard work or self-awareness? Which one takes you further?
I would say self-awareness, because if you don't have self-awareness, you don't even know that you have to work harder or you're working too hard to burn yourself out.
Absolutely.
So I think self-awareness is more important.
Wonderful, wonderful. What one habit that quietly destroys a person's potential? What is that one habit which destroys your potential, anybody's potential?
So I think when people build a wall around them, they stop liking some things at work, they stop liking certain kinds of work, they stop meeting their friends, they stop trying out new things, meeting new people, being in touch with others. I think your friends will correct you to the extent that you need to be corrected, and help you tap into your potential, or tell you things like, you're so good at this, why aren't you pursuing this? But if you cut those channels of communication, then you are also cutting those access points to your potential.
All right. So the wall could be anything for anybody, right? The wall could
be anything to
anybody.
For anybody, yeah.
Makes sense. So what is that one biggest lie people tell themselves constantly about success? What is that one lie that you think people constantly tell about them? Success?
Well, I don't know if every last person on the planet is telling this to themselves, but a popular lie is, if I get there, I'll be happy.
All right.
Or if I buy that, I'll be happy. Or if I reach that level, I'll be happy. Or if there's a pecking order of your, social class, if I get to that level, I'll be happy. So if I be successful, I'll be happy. So maybe that's the big lie.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. One question every student must ask themselves before choosing a career. So for students,
I think one of the things is, is this what I really, really want to do? Or is this, or am I going to be an engineer who later becomes a psychologist like me?
All right.
So I think that's a question worth asking yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to evaluate the job that you're doing. Because I spend a lot of my time in hotels because of workshops or because I'm meeting some clients there. So I met in one hotel, I met this guy at the front office. He was really happy, beaming, and you could see his customer service was at a different level.
All right.
And of course they have their badges. And I read his name and I said, "You're really happy and with what you're doing, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you like about this job?" He said, "Everything, sir. I like the air conditioning here. I like that people, as soon as you walk into the hotel, they see me." So he said, "I like the way I dress. I dress in this blazer, and I like dressing up like this for work. I like meeting different people. And when they come here, sometimes they're worried. I like telling them something and they feel, they know what to do or it's sorted out." So he likes all these things about his job. I think every student should ask themselves, how do I spend the entire day?
Wow.
Am I going to like that? It's very easy to understand this if you're talking about something like a night shift. You're not a night person. And imagine you have to work for one of these support teams in a big IT company, but you only can work at night because you're supporting the US team. Now, it's very easy to say, this is not my scene.
Yeah.
But sometimes for subtler things, like, are you really wired to sit in front of that laptop the whole day? Are you wired to work with everybody around you not being part of your team? Are you wired to just talk to people who will yell at you, though it's not your fault? So I think the way you spend your entire day, it's worth asking yourself if that's the right thing for you.
Wow. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So one last rapid fire question. Books or experience? Where do you think real growth happens?
So once again, going back to, if it's about just knowing something, and if you want to know I've heard about this poem, Daffodils. I wonder who wrote it. And, you can just go see it in a book. And, books are really helpful for that. Though I think people are reading less nowadays. I don't know. Some people tend to tell me that they're reading more.
No, they're not.
You're an academician. You should.
They're not.
They're not. So I think for that, if you want to just gain knowledge or just know something, I think books are good enough. There's nothing more that's required. But if you want to become more competent or picking up a new skill, then you've got to have the experience. Like, you can read an entire book on swimming, but if you jump into the pool having read that book, then you're setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So wonderful, Vinesh. I would ask you one last question.
Sure.
And that will be a follow-up on the second last rapid fire question that I asked you about students, getting to know, feeling it while they're at the job and all that.
Right.
So if you could just give one last piece of advice to our students and to the community who's probably watching this podcast right now. And my question would be around careers, right? So basically, when the students are looking for the first job, usually we as educators tell them, your career cannot be decided on the first job itself, right? This is not your deciding point.
Right.
And in fact, you yourself just said a little while ago, you, from being an engineer, you decided to become a psychologist, probably because of the experiences that you had in between. Like, after your engineering, you went for work and then you realized this is what I like, and then you went on to become a psychologist. So could you give one piece of advice to our students, probably around careers, helping them understand that, the first job is probably not your final career.
Right.
Or maybe the first job is about self-discovery, probably.
Right.
So based on your experience, based on, the number of years of wisdom, I would say, that you carry, because you interact with so many people and have such diverse experiences.
Right.
So what is that one piece of advice that you would want to give to this student community around careers, around first job, based on what you think may be of value and relevance to them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Maybe because of my work in positive psychology, I can just focus on that. Think about what people seek you out for. What are the compliments that you've got while you were studying, while you were a student? Think also about when are you at your best? When you're doing what? Are you feeling the best? Are you looking forward to? What are those days when you really look forward to getting to work or getting to college or coming and doing your craft? Those are important clues in terms of what could be the ideal thing for you. And if you have a choice and if you have the opportunity, that's a good place for you to start your career. But reality doesn't always, go that way. So maybe irrespective of where you start, it's a great idea for you to keep your eyes open for this. Look at what your colleagues are saying about you. Look at what areas of work you're doing really well at. Look at what people are seeking you out for in terms of asking you for advice, asking you for help. Look at what's coming to you so naturally that you don't have to work towards it. Okay? Are there days in the week that you really hate? What are you doing on those days? As opposed to days in the week which you really love, and what's happening on those days? Okay? I think that these would open up avenues to steering you. And it's a journey. It's not something that you will join your first job and that'll be the right thing. This will help you get into the corridor. Your first job is the corridor. You open one door and you say, this is not my room. You open another door, that's not my room. Start walking away from the things that you don't like. And eventually you will reach corridors and rooms and probably the center hall, which is built for you. So good luck to all of you, and I hope that happens.
Wow, wonderful. I think you very beautifully summarized. In fact, I would pick up few lines and use them in my class in front of my students as well.
Feel free to repeat everything I said and pass it off as your own.
I was about to add to that, and I'll call it as my own. So thank you so much for that, Vinesh. I think I really love this conversation with you around leadership, around experiences, around all that you just talked about today. So thank you so much for being with us on this podcast. I'm sure our viewers would have had amazing learning about positive psychology, about leadership, all of it defined so beautifully in the form of those experiences that you've had. Thank you so much, Vinesh. And
Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you for helping me explore all these areas. And looking forward to seeing some more.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for today's IRE Talks podcast. I'm sure our audience must have had great learning about leadership, about what it means to have an understanding about positive psychology, what it means to build a career that is meaningful and that comes out of your experiences, which may be varied in multiple ways. I'm sure our audience today must have got a good flavor of what kind of experiences a leader gets to have when you are in your career trajectory. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please keep following us on our various social media handles @IRE Talks Podcast, @GIBS Business School. I'm your host, Dr. Pallavi Vyas, signing off for today until we meet you with another very interesting session in our IRE Talk series. Thank you so much for joining us.